There's about 1,000,007 reasons why you should love the C5 Corvette, and I've gone over in detail most of these reasons. And lately, I've pretty much only talked about how great the C5 Corvette is, so in today's video, I'm going to go in a different direction that some of you guys might not like. So in this video, I'm going to talk about everything that I hate about the C5 Corvette. But before we get into the video, guys, I wanted to let you guys know that we do have some merch here at Mile High Misfits now, so you can get the Boosting My Ego 1 PSI at a Time Mustang shirt or the Millennial Paycheck Boomer Taste Corvette shirt, all on our Instagram page for $25, so shoot us a message and we'll get one out to you. So the first thing on this list that I hate about the C5 Corvette is the EBCM. This is an issue that affects all years of the C5 Corvette, and basically what happens is the connections inside of the EBCM break, and this causes your active handling and your ABS to no longer work. Luckily, this doesn't affect the drivability of the car very much, besides your ABS and your active handling no longer work. So as long as you're okay with permanent burnout mode, then you're going to be fine. For the 2001 to 2004 models, the EBCM is repairable, so it's a pretty easy procedure that you can find pretty much anywhere on YouTube. But if you have the 97 to 2000 model, then this is going to be a lot more tricky. Most people will tell you that the EBCM for the 97 to 2000 models is not repairable, but there are some shops out there that claim they can repair it. I haven't tried this, but maybe it's worth a shot. Most people, like myself, will just leave the EBCM alone and drive it without it because really it's not a huge deal if you don't mind the lights on the dash. But some people will also just buy secondhand from eBay, which costs usually around $1,000. Now, number 2 on this list is excessive wheel hop when doing launches or burnouts. In stock form, these cars tend to have excessive amounts of wheel hop when doing burnouts or launches, and I especially noticed this at the track when I was doing some time attack runs. Pretty much every time that I launched it, my car was just bouncing up and down like crazy, which was super annoying and also can damage the car. One way to combat this is to buy a new diff mount that's a little bit stiffer. You can buy one of these from HPI for about $200, and I'm planning on doing this to my C5. The next thing on this list is the sewing machine ticking from the LS1. A common issue with the LS engines is that they are notorious for making a sewing machine ticking noise, and the LS1 and the LS6 are both guilty of this to some extent. When it comes to the C5 Corvette, you have two options. You can either get used to it or make your exhaust so loud that you can't hear it anymore. But I should mention that if your ticking noise is louder and it's getting worse, then you should probably get that checked out because that's not normal. Now, the next one that everybody complains about is the cheap interior and the crappy seats. A lot of people complain about the cheap and squeaky interiors. Pretty much everything in this car is a little bit squeaky and fits a little loose, but that's just 90s GM for you. Chevy is practically known for having the cheapest interiors of the 90s and early 2000s. So when it comes to this car, this is what you get. Over the years, all the plastics on the interior have degraded and become brittle, so they have the structural integrity of a stack of Pringles. And you're going to have a hard time finding anything in this interior that doesn't have any kind of squeak or groan to it. Another thing that I should mention is how little support these seats offer. When I was at the track, I was pretty much sliding around back and forth in the seat like crazy every time that I took a corner, and I actually had to slow down at times just so I could readjust myself and get my feet back on the clutch because these seats just have you sliding around like crazy, so a good set of bucket seats is probably a good investment. But I will say, guys, if Chevy had to skimp out anywhere on this car, I'm glad it was the interior and not the performance. And the next thing on this list is the cup holders in this car. Adding on to the interior, I had to make this its own separate section because it is that bad. The cup holders in these cars are absolutely worthless. I would have rather had Chevy just not put a cup holder in at all than put this thing in because it serves no purpose. This thing is so shallow and has no support whatsoever, so pretty much any drink that I put in this cup holder ends up on my passenger's lap every time that I floor it. The only thing that these cup holders will do is give false hope to the people who want to drink a coffee on the road, only to gas it and have it fall straight into their passenger's lap. Before I move on to the next half of the video, I wanted to let you guys know, if you're finding this video helpful or entertaining, make sure to subscribe to Mile High Misfits because that is the best way to support the channel, and I'd really appreciate you guys helping me out. So the next thing that I hate about the C5 Corvette is how hard it is to jack up the car. And guys, when I say that it's hard to jack up the car, I really just mean that it's kind of an inconvenient pain in the ass. These cars are super low and it looks super aggressive, which I love about the car, but there are some downsides. To avoid damaging the side skirts and the frame, you have to use these little pucks to jack up the car. As you guys can see, the jack just barely doesn't fit under the car with the puck on there. And yes, the car is lowered, and yes, this is a low profile jack. So I have to drive up on these 2x4s to give it just that little bit of height that it needs. So this is what I mean when I say it's a little inconvenient. Obviously, this is the case for a lot of performance cars out there, so it's not a huge deal. Now again, because this car is so low, the next thing on this list is the front end scrapes on everything. Pretty much every time that I leave my house, the front air dam scrapes on my driveway when I'm leaving. And let me tell you guys, this thing is loud. So every time that I leave the driveway, it sounds like I'm ripping the whole front end of my car off. Even with the best angle of departure, my car still scrapes 9 times out of 10. And this really hurts my pride more than anything because my neighbors either think I don't know how to drive or I just abuse the crap out of my car. But because there's springs on the air dam, it causes relatively no damage, but it just sounds like it, and I think that's the worst part. Now, the next thing is I love and I hate how the hood opens. Now, before you guys come at me in the comments, let me explain. This car looks so cool with the hood open, and this is a really badass feature. But there is a downside to that. If you're the type of person who does all of their own work and all of their own maintenance, having the hood in your way all the time is kind of a pain. A lot of times, it's not a huge deal, but if you plan on doing major maintenance or pretty much anything to the front of the motor, you're gonna have to take the hood off. And again, guys, this is a super cool feature on these cars, but it does come with some minor inconveniences. Now, the next thing is, in my experience, it's been really hard to find good-looking wheels for the car. I've been trying to find the perfect wheels to put on this car for a while, and guys, there are unlimited options out there, but I just haven't found anything that I've fallen in love with. Most of the time, the wheels that I find are either too ricey, don't come in staggered options, they're the wrong lug pattern, or they just don't come in the right color. There's a lot of good OEM options for these cars, and there's a lot of good C6 options as well, like these Gumby wheels that I put on. And these wheels really do look good, but I'm trying to find a wheel that looks great. And guys, from what I've found, to make wheels look great on these cars, you're gonna have to spend a lot of money, and you're gonna have to do a lot of suspension upgrades. But guys, that's just my opinion. When I say great looking wheels, that's completely subjective, and you guys might not agree with that, but for me, to find great looking wheels, it's gonna cost a lot of money. Now, the final thing on this list is issues with the battery draining. I really don't know what it is about these cars, but the battery in the C5 Corvette drains faster than any car I have ever owned. You can leave the car out in the garage for 2 weeks while you're on vacation, and by the time you come back, it's completely dead. So for people who don't drive their C5 Corvette consistently, you're probably gonna have to use a battery tender or at least start it up once a week. And there's a lot of Corvette owners who don't drive their cars at all throughout the wintertime, so by the time you come back to it, it's gonna be dead. And this really isn't as big of an issue for me because I drive the car pretty consistently even throughout the wintertime, but there are times when I go on vacation for about 2 weeks and I come back and the car is dead, so it's a little frustrating. But there you have it, guys. Those are the top 10 things that I hate about the C5 Corvette, but I want to hear what you guys think, so let me know in the comments below what you dislike about the car. But if you guys enjoyed the content for today, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future content. I'll catch you guys next week. Later.